Week 8 is here, and so are we. Welcome, everybody, back to the DFS Dudes, the 8th episode. It's week 8, here to give you our fantasy advice for this week. We are your hosts, Sam Corcoran, Jake Hart over there, Julian Sherman down below. I'm back this week. I was off last week. Fellas, how are we doing? How did you guys do last week?
Not great.
Hey, you go ahead.
Yeah, not a lot to say. A lot of my under the radar picks, Michael Gallup and Romeo Dobbs, just did not hit, and the game stacks were really hard to find last week, and so some of those things that we thought were going to be great just did not pan out. And if you didn't have Burrow and Chase, you kind of ended up out of the money.
Yeah, I won about $0. It was pretty rough. None of my cash hit, and my game stacks that I had, I created like 3 or 4 tournament lineups, and all of them just busted, which was rough. So if you did not have like a Cincinnati stack, you really did not do very well. Maybe you had a couple min cash, but you're not gonna like have like top 1 to 2% finishes without Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, or something like that. So I did not do that well.
Yeah, really a big week for the Bengals. Chiefs obviously had a big week. If you had McCole Hardman, you probably cashed in there. But I mean, he was probably a cheap option, not on many people's radar. But anyways, it's week 8. It's a new week, new start. Let's just jump right into it. Quarterback. We'll just do that. Jake, I'll let you start off for this one. Who do you have as some quarterbacks for this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 big game stacks that I'm looking at this week as kind of more attractive than the rest. The first is Miami, Detroit, and then the second is Arizona, Minnesota. And so really when you're looking at the quarterbacks in those games, it's going to be what fits your budget, and play around with Kyler, Goff, Murray, and Cousins. And I've kind of been messing around and see what fits in a week where me and Julian were just talking about it before you came, Sam. It's so restricted. If you pay up at one position, you're not getting to the rest of the positions. So it's really tough to get there. So if you want to go down for someone like Goff rather than a guy like Kyler or Jalen Hurts, that is going to be most of the guys, or most of the lineups are going to have those guys, just because they are so in a league of their own in terms of price and in terms of performance so far this season. And then the other guy would be Andy Dalton at 5,500. Raiders defense. Again, I played a lot of Davis Mills last week. It didn't really work out because I tried to stack with Brandon Cooks or Nico Collins, and he randomly decided to throw to like Philip Dorsett or something. But I'm willing to shoot my shot on Dalton and then run it back with a Chris Olave or Jawan Johnson.
Fair enough. Yeah, I look at this Miami game right here. I love Tua in this game. I think, again, the Dolphins line stack could be very great. 2 great offenses. I'm going with Tua at 6,200, paying up a little bit. Detroit has one of the worst defenses in the league this year. And I think Tua, if that's going to be an offensive bloodbath, then I think Tua is going to be your guy at 6,200. I think that's a pretty good price for him this week. It's surprising that he's the 4th priciest quarterback. You got a lot of people on buys this week and playing in other games that aren't in this window. So I think Tua is going to be your best bet at 6,200. Again, I also do like the Arizona-Minnesota game, going with a Kirk Cousins or a Kyler Murray right there. Overall, yeah, Andy Dalton too. I think, Jake, you really hit the nail on the head right there. I really like all these quarterbacks for this week. Another guy you could maybe look at, Carolina, Atlanta. Atlanta had a very poor week last week. I know Carolina's offense kind of sucks. If you really need a cheap guy, PJ Walker could be that guy for you, or Baker Mayfield, depending on who starts. It's probably going to be PJ Walker at this point, but we'll have to see what happens. I like Tua, though, for my quarterback this week.
Yeah, I think Tua is the best all-around play when it comes to quarterback. I think that game in general is probably going to be the highest owned game. Just Miami, Detroit, 2 pretty high-powered, not high-powered offenses, but Detroit actually has a solid offense. Like, whoever's playing Detroit, you kind of want to get on that team because they have a poor defense and a pretty darn good offense that can do really well. And so I think Tua is probably the best play. But I think for me, if I'm going to pay down, I just go all the way down to Sam Ehlinger. And it's pretty vomit-y, right? It's like, oh, God, I have to get – but he's 4K. Like, he's 4th. That's a defense price for a quarterback who can run the ball, You can pair him with Michael Pittman if you want. I mean, I think that's kind of the logical place to go is pairing him with Michael Pittman. And so for me, if I'm not going to pay, if I want to pay down at quarterback, I kind of want to go Sam Ehlinger. And then if I'm going to pay up if I'm going to pay up, I'm just going to go all the way. I'm not going to go Kyler or Prescott. I'm just going to go Jalen Hurts all the way or Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I think we're all on board with Tua. I'm interested to see what stacks we decide to use for that. Sam Ehlinger could be a solid pick going up against Washington as well. I don't mind that, especially considering now he's that starter. So his price is what's his price at?
4K.
4K, yeah. So very, very low for Sam Ehlinger. If you want to go with him in a Pittman stack, that could be very good. I actually would not mind that either. But I think Tua is still the best play for this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, but Ehlinger you need so much less from, is what I'm trying to say. Like,
yeah.
I mean, 20 points for Ehlinger is a crazy 5 times your money. Like 5 times your money for a guy like Tua, he's going to be needing to score like 30 plus points. And I mean, the problem with all the quarterbacks this week and why I keep saying it's such an ugly slate, and I'm sure we'll get to it with wide receivers, but the stack options are so expensive for the attractive games. It's going to be ugly, and you're going to have to shoot your shot in almost every lineup on a certain game stack or a certain thing that is just so expensive, and you're not going to be able to get away from it. And so, I mean, we'll go into running backs here, which does not make it easier because I have a lot of high option, high priced guys that I really like.
Absolutely. Let's just jump into those high priced guys. Running back. I think this week there's a lot of guys on the higher price that I really like. Jonathan Taylor at 8K, Saquon. I mean, you could go really high at running back. Looking at some low end guys, I know Zeke's out, so Tony Pollard at 6,100 is going to get a lot of those reps at running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Not too many cheap options I'm that high on. I'm interested to hear what you guys have though. Julian, I'll start with you. What do you have for running back?
For me, well, you said Tony Pollard. I think that's one of the more obvious plays. He's going to be pretty darn chalky. He's one of those guys that gets like 10, 12 points even with the starting running back in. And so with Zeke going out, I think at only 6.1K, he's going to get a lot of ownership. But I also think Kenneth Walker at 6.5 wasn't priced up enough after last week. I think he's a great play. That game, I don't want to target that Seattle Giants game that much. I don't really like Geno. I don't like Daniel Jones, but I do like Kenneth Walker. And obviously, Ramondre Stevenson, he's a solid play going against the Jets. He's going to be high owned. And if I'm going to pay up, I think I just want to go just Derrick Henry. I don't want to Christian McCaffrey. I don't really know if he's going to get 100% role in that offense. It's hard to tell. So if I'm going to pay up, I do want to go Derrick Henry. Saquon Barkley is playable. And obviously, Josh Jacobs at 7,500. He's just such a stud that you can play him really. But it doesn't really matter the matchup. You can just put him in and you're going to get like 15 points minimum.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Josh Jacobs, we had this discussion in the middle of the week where it kind of goes to show, like, I need to pay a bit more attention on Sunday because Josh Jacobs has been doing a lot better than I thought he was.
Yeah, 3 straight weeks of 30 plus
35
points.
plus, like 30
He's
plus
like the
points.
third overall running back right now or something like that.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that Raiders offense is really they're committed to him at this point. And I mean, you can see when you're watching the game, like defenses have not been able to stop him, even in that Kansas City game where, I mean, you think about the Chiefs defense and like they don't get publicized a lot for their run D because teams need to pass, need to keep it going, and the Raiders just committed to it and kind of beat them down in that aspect of the game. At running back for me, yeah, you guys kind of said it. I really want the top end guys. I think Saquon and D-Hen are just they're killer plays. I don't see how you get any better. And all I keep seeing is flashing things where it's like against the Seattle defense this week, 5 out of the 7 weeks have been 30 plus points by the running back. And it's like, okay, how do you not play Saquon? And then Derrick Henry, the last 5 times he's played Houston, he scored 25 plus points, and running backs are averaging 30 points a game. Like, how do you not play him? So I tend to go really high on running backs this week, and I said the same thing last week, and it kind of bit me in the butt when I had both Henry, Barkley, and Leonard Fournette, and did not get a single touchdown. So hopefully there'll be some touchdown regression there. Other guys I like, Alvin Kamara, 7.1. He hasn't gotten into the end zone yet, so he's really involved in the passing game. I'm hoping he gets into the end zone, but that red zone package does involve Mark Ingram pretty heavily. But again, like he's going to get one eventually. So you might as well bet on it being this week. And if he gets one, he's an automatic 20 point with how involved he is in the passing game. And then price down a little bit more at 5.3. I like Deonta Foreman if Chuba Hubbard is out, which it looks like he's trending towards. I couldn't tell you for sure. But 5.3K, he looked really good. Looks like he's the first guy we've seen to beat the torn Achilles. So I would be excited to see him against a bad Atlanta defense to get all the touches. And then the last one, Brian Robinson Jr., 5.6K. He got 20 carries last week. He's getting
He's the RB1 in Washington.
Yeah, I know like people are looking at Antonio Gibson because he got a fluky touchdown last week, but they were running the ball the entire game. So it was Brian Robinson. It's his show, and he's only at 5.6. So against Indianapolis, where it's Ellinger's first start, and you really don't know what's going to happen, I like him in that game.
Yeah, I think Brian Robinson is actually a really good play at 5,600. A guy who he's starting to come back, and he's looking really good. 20 carries, getting a lot of volume. He's the RB1 in Washington. And going up against an Indianapolis defense that has not been doing the best this year, I think that's a really good play at 5,800 as well. So there's your running backs for you. Let's move on to wide receivers. Julian, I'll start with you. Are you going to stack Tua with Tyreek or whoever your quarterback is?
I think Tyreek is the all-around best wide receiver play this week, honestly. I think just that game in general is going to be really high owned. And so I think Tyreek Hill, 8,500, which, I mean, isn't super expensive. He's like the fourth highest priced wide receiver on the slate. And I like him better than really any of the guys above him. I do like Justin Jefferson this week, but I definitely like him more than Adams, and I like him more than Cup. So if I'm going to pay up, I'm either going to go A.J. Brown or I am going to go Justin Jefferson. Really, it depends on my stacks, but if my stacks don't involve Adams or Cup, if I'm going to pay up, I'm going to go Jefferson or Tyreek Hill. That's just kind of what I want to do. And DJ Moore at 5,300 going against Atlanta. I think if I'm going to, he's a mid-range wide receiver. He did really well last week. Maybe it's a little recency bias, but I think he could be a really nice play. And Chris Olave at 6K, also going against Las Vegas. I like that game in general. I think that's going to not go under the radar, but the spread for Las Vegas, 25.5. The spread for New Orleans, 24. It's one of the highest projected games on the slate, and it's projected to be a close game. So no one's just going to run away with it just running the ball. So I think that game in general, getting Devontae Adams in your lineup with Derek Carr and Chris Olave, I think that's something that you can do in a stack. And it might leave you a little tight if you do Devontae Adams, so you're going to have to save money somewhere else. But putting in DJ Moore in that lineup also is just a one-off. I like that a lot too.
Yeah, I agree with Tyreek. I think he is the best option this week. Very pricey, though. So I think you're going to have to go low with some of these guys. I think DJ Moore, I think you hit the nail on the head right there at 5,300 is a fantastic price going up against Atlanta. But other low-end wide receivers, you're going to need to find someone in that range. I think one guy you can possibly look at, if I scroll to where he is, Nico Collins. I know someone mentioned him earlier, Jake. He is questionable, but he could be a good option at 4,200. He needs to get in the red zone a bit more, not averaging the most points, but 4,200 going up against a Tennessee defense could be very solid. I like that play right there. Who else am I looking at? Paris Campbell has been on the rise, 4,500 against Washington. Ellinger, I know he's at quarterback this week. It could be a risky play. You could go him or Alec Pierce. I'm trying to think of some other low-end guys. You go with Drake London at 5,100, another great price right there. Needs to get. Again, I think he needs to. He's at 5,100 for a reason. He hasn't shown us much this year. But if you need some low-end guys, there you go. I also do like A.J. Brown, as you said, Julian, another high-end receiver you can probably slide into your roster this week. And I think it could be really worth it. A.J. Brown going up against a Pittsburgh defense that hasn't looked – I mean, the offense has been abysmal, but the defense has also looked so far. So A.J. Brown, another good play. You could go a guy like Pittman. Again, I think that's better in a stack with Ellinger. Or Deebo Samuel going up against the Rams defense. He is questionable. He has been dealing with some injury. If he's out, then Brandon Ayuk could be that guy for you. That could be a very solid play as well.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the Niners, guys, it gets me a little nervous, to be honest, because you're talking about. I guess the best way to the best example is to look at DJ Moore, who, while McCaffrey was there, was just not involved at all. There wasn't enough passing attempts in Carolina to support Christian McCaffrey's target share as well as a wide receiver one in DJ Moore. And the Niners are going out with what you hope are three other fantasy viable guys in Ayuk, Kittle, Deebo, and now CMC in an offense that already likes to run the ball. I don't know how much of any of them I'm going to be playing in the future, just because I have no trust that they're going to have to throw the ball 30 times. And even if they do, 8 targets for McCaffrey, 8 to 10 for Deebo, maybe 6 for Kittle. And where does that leave Ayuk? Like, none of them are going to have those 15 target games that you're really looking for in a tournament lineup. And then for me going down, I'm looking at 5.1 Rondale Moore. I really like him. He's been iffy lately, but I think with Hollywood Brown out and you're in a game that, again, could be high scoring as they're playing Minnesota, you're going to want his speed. Arizona's going to need him, along with DeAndre Hopkins, 7.4. I think they're both pretty low, under the radar plays, as both of them haven't played the whole season. And Hollywood had been the main option up until now. And then the last one, Wan'Dale Robinson, 4.7K. He went out in the middle of the second quarter and he had like 8 targets last week. I played him a lot last week and was disappointed to see him leave. Same thing with Alan Lazard last week. It was just like, it seemed like people were dropping like flies that I had as the under the radar plays, but I still think he's solid. He's definitely the number one option with the Giants. And this game, they're up against not a good defense. Seattle is just, you want to play guys against Seattle. So that's what I like. And you already mentioned Chris Olave, DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle. Those are the other guys I had.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of options at receiver this week, so it's going to be a pretty good week for a receiver, in my opinion. Yeah, we're flying by this. I think we're really on good terms with all these guys. I think the consensus lineup is going to be interesting. We'll talk about this later, but I know, guys, we have a lot of guys that we have in common. Going to be interesting to see how we stack them together. Let's move on to tight end. There's one guy that really stands out to me this week. Jake, you mentioned the Miami Detroit stack first, and we kept mentioning it throughout the game. TJ Hawkinson at 4,900. He is questionable this week. He didn't practice Wednesday, so he could be out. If he's healthy, that would probably be the best bet for this week. Other guys you could talk about, Irv Smith is not that bad of an option. Again, the Arizona-Miami stack, you could go high with Zach Ertz at 5,100. But I'm really looking for guys in these game stacks who have good offenses, who could be getting a lot of targets in these game stacks. That's what I'm really looking at this week. And I agree with you, Jake, that those two are the best game stacks. So I think those tight ends involved with that. Gesicki too. He's been on the trade block, so I don't really know. That's been the report, so I don't really know how many targets he would get. But overall, I think looking at these game stacks this week, it will work out really well with either of these guys.
Yeah, I like Ertz. I think 5.1 is solid. He had a bad week last week. Look for him to bounce back. He has shown that he's Kyler's middle of the field dump off target. The other guys, Tyler Higbee, 4.2. that Niners defense is back to full health, so they're going to be pretty stingy, especially in the secondary and the running game. So I think Higbee, who had I think 10 catches last time he played the Niners, is still going to be that reliable dump off option whenever Stafford gets ruffled, which with the Rams offensive line is every play. And then Dalton Schultz at 3.7. We've seen both times Dak has been in. He's gotten, I think, at least 5 catches, and I know he's still a little bit banged up. He came off the field a few times last week, so that's why you only saw him with the 5 targets. But at 3.7, if he can stay on the field the entire game and show that PCL is healthy, I feel good about that. And then the last one, way down, Jawan Johnson, 3.2K. He's going up against the Raiders again. Julian, you said it's going to be a high scoring game, and he scored 2 touchdowns last week, which shows that he's a favorite red zone target to Andy Dalton. So you could just start him and pray for a touchdown, and if he hits it, I mean, you're basically paid off at 3.2.
Yeah, I think my favorite play is Tyler Higbee, what you said, and I think the defense is really good. But against tight ends, defense doesn't matter as much as run defense or something like that against a running back. And I think he and Cooper Kupp are the top 2 targets on that offense right now. And I think they are going to be passing the ball a good amount. Like I said, I don't like playing teams against the Niners because they run the ball so much and it's so slow. But it's just Tyler. It's a tight end. It's not like I'm stacking the Rams. So I think Tyler Higbee is a great play. I like Kyle Pitts here going against Carolina only at 4K. I think he could be a solid play. He has not been very good at all this year, but with him, a guy with his talent at 4K doesn't really come around that much. And so I think for me playing Kyle Pitts, it's kind of gross, but it's also he's 4K. All I need is like 4 receptions for 50 yards and you're fine, right? And you guys kind of took a lot of the ones that I was going to say, but another one that I like is Pat Freiermuth. I think that I don't really like that game in general because of I think Philly's just going to run away with it. But for tight end, 3.9K, all these tight ends, when we talk about a 4.2K, a 4K, a 3.9K, you're really just looking for like 4 or 5 receptions for it to get there, right? You don't need that much. And then the rest of your lineup has to get there if you're just saving money on that. So for me, those are the 3 tight ends that I'm targeting that you guys haven't mentioned.
Yeah, overall, I mean, a lot of options at tight end. I feel like wide receiver, tight end, there's going to be a lot of options there. So I think your flex is well flexible, no pun intended, right there. But overall, I think this seems like a pretty good week for receiving options, and I think it's going to be a fun week. Interesting to see what people do. Before we get to the consensus lineup, defense, I mean, again, always a crapshoot. I think Commanders at 2,600 is probably your best bet. We're kind of banking on Miami to do well, so I wouldn't put the Lions defense. You could put Chicago at 2,400 if you really want to. I think that's a game that none of us are really banking on. So that's why I'm going a bit higher up with Commanders at 2,600. Texans at 2,600 as well. But I think overall going up against Ellinger, I think the Commanders have a better chance to do well.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Commanders. I wrote them down. I mean, again, you're playing a new quarterback, never started. There's going to be some turnovers, and that's what really attracts you to a defense. Same thing can be said. I like the Pats defense at 3K. I think this Jets offense, it has to adjust a little bit without the explosiveness of Breece Hall. And I mean, Zach Wilson has not looked good this season. So forcing him to throw the ball, and as you know, Belichick against young quarterbacks has been very good historically. So I like the Pats defense, and at only 3K, I think they're pretty attractive to get a few sacks and probably a turnover or 2 with how Zach Wilson's been playing this year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, I really don't care that much about defense, but I think if you're going to pay up, I think you pay up for the Eagles defense going against Pittsburgh. I think that's a really solid play. Like, if you have money left and you have I can do the highest price defense. I got 3.9K. Okay, that's fine. Go pay up. But if I'm going to pay down, you guys said it, Commanders defense going against Indianapolis. the defense that I would do to pay down.
There you go. Yeah, some great options right there for defense. Let's get into the consensus lineup. Guys, we kind of flew by this, so I feel like we'll fly by the consensus lineup pretty quickly. Let me share my screen as I always do. Hang on 1 second. Nope. Here we go. There it is. Let's share that right there. Perfect. All right, let's get into it. So quarterback, I think we're all kind of looking at quarterback, thinking Tua is the guy. Is that our guy for this week?
I'm okay with that. Any of the guys in the game or Andy Dalton.
We could do Tua. Is going to be super high owned, but yeah, I'm cool with Tua.
I'm cool with Tua too. I think that will be a good game, and yeah, we'll definitely get a stack in there. I think we were all like, he's the top option this week. Let's do that. So why not put that in the consensus lineup? Running back. I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about running back? Because I'm a bit conflicted about what to do. I feel like you could go low. I feel like you can go high. There's a lot to do. I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are.
I mean, for me, I would like at least in every lineup to have one high-end guy, whether it's to shoot your shot on Henry's 40-point game, or maybe, I mean, even if it's just Kamara at 7.1. I think this week you're gonna have a tough time getting away from how explosive and talented these guys are in these smash games.
Yeah, I think we have to decide if we do want to go with like a chalky play, like when we pay down. Do we want to go with the Tony Pollard, who's going to be pretty darn high owned because Ezekiel Elliott's out? I think that could be a play here. But if we're going to pay up, I think we do go Derrick Henry. I think that's probably where I would go if we're going to pay up. But I don't know if we do want to.
I would honestly go with a Brian Robinson at 5,600, a bit more low owned, a bit cheaper. I think that could be a really good play for this week at 5,600 instead of Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I mean, if you go Derrick Henry, you are going to have to get one of those cheaper guys. And if you're not going to go Pollard, I think Brian Robinson or Deonta Foreman are the two guys that I'm looking at in that 5K range. Okay,
so let's go Henry. And then what are we thinking? Are we on the fence about Brian Robinson or Deonta Foreman? Anyone want to pitch for one of those guys? I think I'm going to go with. Oh, that's kind of tough. I think I want to go with. I would go with Robinson. I think I like that a little. I like it a little bit better than Foreman. I think Foreman's going to be a bit more high owned.
All right, yeah,
perfect. Let's do that. Wide receiver. Do we want to put in the Tyreek stack with Tua? I think if we're going to play Tua, we kind of have to stack him.
Yeah. We could. I mean, do we want to do Tua with Waddle and Tyreek and bring it back with like Josh Reynolds or something, or do you not want to do that?
I mean, I think if we have the budget, you can confidently play with how the Dolphins pass the ball. It is just Tyreek and Waddle. You can play both of them, and Waddle isn't. I mean, 6.7. He's not crazy expensive, especially if you're one back that's so cheap like Josh Reynolds. Where especially if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out, that could be a smash.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're cutting it close with budget, but I think you could put both in for now, and then you're gonna have to get a really cheap option. Wan'Dale Robinson, I really liked from you, Jake. I believe he was at 4,700. Going up against the Seahawks, he seems like he's the wide receiver one there. I like that play a lot. If you want to go with that,
yeah. I mean, why don't we check out the Detroit game? What receiver? I think Josh Reynolds is the play.
So, we can obviously get someone at flex. I just put him in there for budget reasons. But where's Josh Reynolds at?
I think he's 5K.
He is 5K. Questionable. Let's see his stat. Yeah, he did not practice on Wednesday, so may have to switch it up a little bit.
Okay, I mean, there are other receivers. I think Amon-Ra, they were saying not gonna play. Someone I'm trying to check, but limited at practice, concussion protocol. Jameson Williams still out. DJ Chark's on IR. I mean, if you want to go way down, Khalif Raymond got 5 catches for 75 last week. I don't know.
He could be a really good play at 4,300 actually. If Reynolds is out, or if all those guys are out, I think that's actually a great play. If Khalif Raymond at 4,300, I would much rather do that than Josh Reynolds. One, not only for security reasons, but also just because he's a lot cheaper and we need some budget in this.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Perfect. Let's do that. We got average salary. We only got 5,600 left, so we may have to cut Tyreek from this team, guys, or maybe cut down a running back, because if you put the lowest defense in, you have 3,300 for a tight end if you want to do something with that. I know Juwan Johnson is a guy that Jake mentioned.
I'm okay with Juwan Johnson, and even if Waller is out, Foster Moreau, I know he let me down last week, but I would still be okay with starting him, just because he's going to get the opportunity to be on the field 80 to 90% of the time, which is valuable in and of itself.
Yeah, I think I like Juwan Johnson a little bit better at 3,200. I think that's going to be a really good play, and people are going to see Waller out, then they're going to go for Foster Moreau. So I think a bit more low owned, a little bit better.
Foster Moreau is not someone I'm worried about the ownership of.
Yeah,
quite yet.
I mean, the thing with Juwan Johnson is playing him over Foster Moreau. The only thing it hurts you is you can't get the Cardinals defense, which we talked about as a defense that we don't really want because we think that's going to be a high scoring game. Out of all these defenses, I take the Bears defense. Not
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. We can just I'd say I just put the Bears in here. I know they traded Robert Quinn, but I think that's going to be a fine. I like this team where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
So yeah, that is our consensus lineup. Jake, I will obviously send that to you. We can put that in. Anything else you guys want to add before we end this stream? I'm glad we were really on board this week. Seems like a pretty easy week, pretty smooth week for all.
Yeah, I mean, one other guy, I have my favorite lineup here, and the other guy that we didn't talk about at all, who I do like, Adam Thielen. I'm wearing the Vikings jersey. I think that if that game hits, and we have seen that Jettis, not necessarily in the games that hit for the Vikings, Jettis isn't necessarily the one who booms. He's kind of like, obviously he's had his good 30-point weeks, but he's also been really down. And we've seen guys like KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen step up in those games. So if this game does end up hitting the 50, 60-point range, I think Adam Thielen could get into the end zone a few times and be really valuable I think he's priced in the 5Ks. So he's another guy that I like as a potential get out option in the middle of the wide receivers.
Absolutely. But Julian, any final words from you?
We were talking about this before this slate. You kind of have to get different a little bit and kind of get unique, because there are a couple of solid, like Tony Pollard, if you are going to play him and you're going to do that Tua Tyreek stack, which I like doing, you're going to have to get different somewhere else. So I think just making sure that you don't go too chalky is kind of important. And some of the plays that aren't chalky might be a little like, ugh, do I really have to play that guy? But sometimes you just have to do a vomit stack with Sam Ehlinger or something like that. It's something that I really like doing this week. And so for me, my lineups might look a little weird, but I think in GPPs, it's going to be a solid lineup.
Absolutely. Should be a good week. Obviously, Jake, Julie, and I, we're on basically the same terms this week. I know there's a lot more guys that we talked about, but hope you guys enjoyed week 8 of DFS Dudes. Let's hope it's a bit better than last week, guys. I know I was out. That's exactly why it was a bad lineup. So anyways, but thank you all so much for watching. Jake, take it away.
Remember, guys, there are many things a man can do with his time, and this is better than those things. Thanks.
See you guys.